Welcome to another episode of The Catholic Novel. Today we're going to talk about John Hassler's North of Hope. I want to share with you a humorous anecdote. As I've mentioned in other shows, I've sort of become an apostle of the Catholic novel. It started when I was in college, and it's continued over the years. Of course, these shows are an attempt at spreading the word about the Catholic novel. Well, about 10 years ago, I was on retreat with a priest, and we started talking about novels, and I started mentioning some of my favorites, and he read them and liked them very much. And then I encouraged him to read John Hassler's North of Hope. And a couple of years later, he was introducing me at some kind of an event, and he said, get Father Lauder to recommend some great Catholic novels to you, but don't read North of Hope. If he mentions North of Hope, don't do it. And I laughed, and he and I never really discussed it. But getting ready for this particular session, this novel, some critics believe, is John Hassler's masterpiece, and it certainly is a very good novel. One critic said, this is the best depiction of a priest since Graham Greene's The Power and the Glory back in the 1940s. I think it's a really good depiction of a priest. Personally, I think Edwin O'Connor's depiction in Edge of Sadness is the best since Power and the Glory, but this one is a really good one. Now, why was the priest to whom I recommended the book so upset? Well, looking it over, I think I see why. There's a depiction of evil in this novel that I have not found in any other Hassler novel. In the other Hassler novels, I think it's kind of petty evil. Use a Catholic term, it's all venial sins. In this novel, it's really depravity. How this enters is this. The story is about this young man, Frank Healy, and in high school he has a crush on this girl, Libby. And at the end of one of the chapters, he says a prayer. He's afraid she's going to distract him from his vocation, and he says, "Dear God, take her out of my life." And it ends. The chapter ends, and God did, for 23 years. But then she reappears, and her life has been really sad. She married, had a child, the marriage broke up. She, I think, has several emotional problems. And her daughter, who's now, at least in her teens, maybe even into her 20s, has been raped by two stepfathers. And I think that's probably what bothered, or if I use the word raped, I think that's okay. Certainly the stepfathers had sex with their daughter, with the stepdaughter. And I think that's what bothered the priest so much, because you get a sense of real evil here, okay, really terrible. The title North of Hope, what does it mean? I think it means either God or heaven. I mean, but what's above hope? What's above hope, I think, is the reality that we're hoping for. So it is a really good depiction of the Catholic priest. Now, I came across this quote from Sartre, which in some ways may seem obvious to you, but it kind of struck me. Right now I'm working on a seminar course on the Catholic novel, and one of my problems is going to be assigning a number of books, maybe 8 or 10 books, and convincing the students that they can do this, and that they ought to do this, and that this is going to benefit them a great deal. I'm going to have to get a really good talk for my first class. But I might even use this quote from Sartre. Here it is. Reading is a pact of generosity between author and reader. Okay, I think that's nicely put. The author is generous to us. He or she has written a book, and we're generous to the author. We're going to read the book. Each one trusts the other. Each one counts on the other, demands of the other as much as he demands of himself. There is then established a dialectical going and coming. When I read, I make demands. If my demands are met, what I am then reading provokes me to demand more of the author, which makes to demand of the author that he demand more of me, and vice versa. The author's demand is that I carry my demands to the highest pitch. So I try to go deeper and deeper in my reading, demanding the author to go deeper and deeper in his writing. if he or she goes deeper in his or her writing, then that makes another demand on me to stay with the book and go deeper. I've never thought of it this way. You know, somehow I think, you know, if the author's dead or he's not sitting in the room with me, I don't realize that novel I'm holding in my hand is a piece of living literature. Someone has put their heart and soul into it, okay? And I'm fortunate enough to share perhaps their deepest dreams, their deepest hopes, their deepest desires. So I think, you know, all the books we have done in this series, and I think we're nearing 50 of them, okay? I recommend them all. It's not just that I like them, I recommend them to you. Now, there is Father Frank Healy, when he becomes a priest, has ups and downs, he's got problems, and when Libby reappears in his life, first of all, he feels very sorry for her, and he reaches out to try to help her daughter, who is, as you can imagine, has a lot of emotional problems. But Libby also, I think, has in the back of her mind that somehow Frank is going to leave the priesthood and marry her. And there is, once he's ordained, that doesn't seem to come up at all. There is one clever little, what can I describe it? A little twist in the novel. When he's a young boy and his mother dies, the person who is with his mother says that, she says, I would like Frank to be a priest. And the person tells that to Frank. Now, who knows how much that who knows how much that works on Frank's vocation? My mother's dying words, or she wanted me to be a priest. Now, as the novel develops, you find out that those were not the exact words of his mother. The exact words of his mother were, I hope that Frank wants to be a priest, which is quite a different hope, okay? Now, I would imagine, I mean, I'm a priest a long time. I'm a priest 60 years, okay? How does a vocation develop? How does a vocation grow? I'll confess to you, I can't remember what I thought being a priest was going to be like. And I couldn't remember very early. I have an image of sitting at a rectory table having dinner, and this thought occurred to me. What did I think being a priest was like? How did I imagine it? My guess is many of my classmates had vivid images. They sort of could see their life very clearly. I don't remember ever doing that, okay? But at the same time as I became aware that I didn't remember, I also became aware that it was 100 times greater than I ever could imagine. And I must say, I still feel that way today. So that's a nice little twist in there. And when Frank Healy gets the truth, what his mother said, he seems to be able to handle it very maturely. Now there's one section about his experience of being a parish priest. I'd like to read that to you. Once again, I'm amazed that laymen can enter into the experience of a priest so well. Graham Greene, Edwin O'Connor, John Hassler, okay, and there are others too. Ralph McInerney does it. All right, so this is now, Frank Healy is finding himself in the parish. He's finding himself enjoying being a parish priest, okay? We're talking about Frank. He no longer felt confused. He was becoming absorbed in his work. He suspected that he was actually doing some of the parishioners some good, both at St. Anne's and at Our Lady's. So he's ministering to Native Americans and to a white congregation. He's ministering to both. More and more people were coming to him and opening up their souls, and either asking for advice or, more often, asking for confirmation of the advice they'd been giving themselves. More and more of his people were receiving the sacraments. He sensed a heightened regard for the Eucharist, and he might be the only priest in the diocese, indeed in America, to report an upswing in the number of confessions. He was becoming increasingly aware of himself as surrounded by two small communities of faith, one Indian, one white, and being nourished by them as he strove to nourish them. They did not follow him so much as cluster around him. He was not so much their leader as their center. They were not of his followers, they were his family. Now, I must tell you that resonates very much with me. My first assignment was not what I would have, if I had chosen my first assignment, I would not have chosen where I was sent. I was there maybe 2 days, maybe 3 days, and I had the feeling the parishioners just embraced me. And I remember the oldest priest in the rectory said, that's the way they are. These people are so warm. And you know, 4 of the happiest years of my life were as a parish priest. I love being a teacher, but there's something about ministering in a parish that is just unique. The parish priest, if he's doing his best, trying his best, will get tremendous responses from people that they nourish him perhaps even more than he nourishes them. So John Hassler was must have been a very perceptive fellow. And when I mentioned in another lecture, I wish I had had a chance to interview him, or to meet him and just sit down with him. When I think about it, maybe I'd be nervous. He was so perceptive, maybe I'd be afraid to reveal myself to him, okay? Maybe I'd be afraid he's going to see right through me, okay? But I would say take any one of Hassler's books, and I don't think, and you'll be grabbed. You'll be grabbed by the story, and you'll be grabbed by the characters. North of Hope, I would say, is the deepest of all of them. And I would say the mystery of evil is depicted in that in a way it isn't depicted in the others. And the anecdote I told about my priest friend, I'm sure that's what bothered him. You know, he didn't expect that, okay? But in terms of the whole story, grace, you know, conquers evil. Christ conquers Satan. And like all genuine Catholic novels, you know, they finally spell victory. So you want to read something that's a little different and quite deep, try John Hassler's North of Hope.